You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
Eu dei nothing. Eu dei nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, eu dei nothing. You dei fucking nothing. Now what is you dei nothing?
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there. I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Next year, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show live on YouTube, obviously podcast from iTunes, Spotify, radio, etc. But it's not only just a daily edition of the show. It's a little special edition because we don't have Rob, we don't have Foo. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking lames, okay? You left me for the whole week on vacation or work or, some serious stuff. I don't care. You guys were on vacation in my story. But digressing, we are joined today by the special, the illustrious Mr. Captain Credentialed. Bring the sexy back, Anthony. We got a lot going on for this show. We got everything from UFC 1, Bellator, and some Avengers Endgame. Plus, right before the show started, since we are doing some trending now topics, Batman is very close to being recasted, and looks like Robert Pattinson is the lead to get it. Oh, Jason doesn't like it. Oh, right, we're going to have some debate, I feel. It's going to be a good one. But anyways, without further ado, of course, like I said, Captain Credentialed himself, Jason Burgos, making his actual debut on MCR. Good colleague over at Showdown.com. Find him at Cheap Seats Chat on Twitter. But Jason, how you doing today? Because we're going to go to you first, because Anthony, he always gets the spotlight, and that ego needs to be checked. So, Jason, how you doing today?
I mean, I'm doing good. Two reasons. One, when I was listening to the show a couple of weeks ago, you called me Burgos. So I'm glad you got it right this time. Fantastic. Good job. And also, Anthony, we just answered our question from the previous conversation. I'm Captain Credential. You're not a captain. So clearly, I'm the leader of this thing. There you go, Anthony. Now you can be quiet.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, man. I know you have your style of
look.
Shut up.
Here's the deal. And I was like, okay, let me have Anthony and Jason on the show at the same time. Because first I'm like, you know what? I should have Jason on first, like by himself.
Yeah, why did it take so long for this to happen? And then Anthony had to tag along. I'm a little offended.
You should be. You should be, Jason. I would be too. I would only chalk it up to pure laziness and lack of time management. I would chalk it up to those two and be completely honest. But when I sort of said, I'll put Anthony and Jason on the show together. We need to do an Avengers show. We need to do an MMA show. Let's just all throw it together in one show. I knew instantly. Order is going out the door, going out the window. Chaos is now here. Pandora's box has been unleashed. So, Anthony, how you doing too, I guess, since you want to jump in?
I'm pretty good, man. I've polishing off a bottle of Jack Daniels as we speak. I do take offense to the idea that I'm all about chaos and confusion. I'm bringing all sorts of anarchy to the show.
It's not to say you. It's not to say you. It's just the combination.
It's him.
travesty to suggest such a thing. I am all about order. I am all about rules. I am all about discipline. And we are well organized, well disciplined on Mixed Comic Radio. Let's get this work.
There's no discipline. There's no discipline.
It's plenty of discipline.
Based on the text message I get from you, there's zero discipline. It's all chaos and disorder.
I text you both very good, responsible things, okay? So don't let this not spread no propaganda, all right? It's ridiculous.
But anyways, I don't even know where to begin. Like, where do you guys want to start? Like, we have so much to talk about. Like, I want to talk about a lot with you guys, especially you, Jason, because I think you're, no offense, Anthony, but Jason's, I think, understanding of the quote minor leagues of MMA is just almost unmatched in MMA journalism right now. So I definitely want to delve into the state of the minor leagues, air quote, because I think at this point in time we can have a debate about even that term being described to one championship, Bellator, Invicta, PFL, etc. But obviously we have UFC 237 that happened last weekend. I know, Jason, you have a very strong opinion about Deontay Wilder's recent comments. I know Anthony has a different opinion. I know I am more of your mind, Jason, so that should be a fun debate. Plus, obviously, we do have Avengers Endgame spoiler discussion to get to. So I don't know if we want to obviously push that back to like the back half of the show, keep all MMA, combat sports related content in the first half, and just go wherever. But the floor is your guys, because honestly, like, I wanted just to bring you guys on and have a talk, like just a discussion about all sorts of things. So wherever you guys want to go first. Plus, you guys just had a show, so I don't know where you guys specifically treaded a lot of ground on.
I have a specific place. Let's talk, because I want to drive Anthony crazy. Let's talk about how good Aquaman is. Let's talk.
Oh my God! Start this nonsense. Aquaman.
Yo, wait, hold on. I thought Anthony was the one drinking. What happened, Jason? Whoa. I was not ready for that fucking turn of events there.
Oh my
Anthony,
God.
it's okay. Aquaman's good.
Very good movie.
Aquaman sucks. Like Aquaman sucks, and I think we need to just let it go. Okay, it's a terrible movie, and only lowbrow people enjoy it, Jason. So I think it's time to just let it go. The movie sucks. Okay. Shazam was much better.
Well, Shazam is better, but I'll make even a hotter take than Aquaman being a good movie. I think fundamentally speaking, is it a better movie than, let's say, Man of Steel in terms of technical ability? No, of course not. Of course not.
No.
However, hear the argument. Entertainment value.
Oh,
Aquaman is the most entertaining movie in the DC universe to date.
yes.
And and honestly, the thing that comes closest is either Wonder Woman or honestly Suicide Squad. For all of it, that's faults and filming issues. Entertainment value is up. It is. Man of Steel entertainment value is down. Oh my God. Holy shit. Batman vs. Superman. Again, probably superior movies in terms of technical ability and the shots that they're put on, the cinematography, everything, the editing, the score. Those movies are better. However, entertainment value, Aquaman was fun, man. It was.
Aquaman was
battle.
horrible. Aquaman, the last battle was enjoyable.
The trenches was awesome.
That's probably the one part of the movie that I did enjoy. The movie was stupid. It was dumb in every way. The acting was trash. The plot was trash. It was nonsensical garbage. It sucked in every way, shape, and form. Okay, that kid that played a teenage Aquaman was just ass crack.
That was rough. The first 10 minutes were rough. I'll be honest. Like the first 10 minutes,
it was unbearable. It was unbearably bad. There was a part during that movie that was so ludicrous, and the dialogue was so straight out of a garbage can that I looked over to my wife with just eyes rolling all the way to the back of my skull. It's like, yo, are we really watching this? Did I spend my money? It's like I'm laughing hysterically because it's so bad. It's so bad that I was in disbelief. It was terrible.
I will. Sorry, Jason, you go.
No, go.
I will counter you with this because comic book movies innately are stupid. Like they are innately silly. Like you have to suspend your disbelief for most comic book movies. Of course, there's some that, broad to deeper topics, deeper thematic issues, of course. However, most, they're silly. They're innately silly. You have people dressed up in tights fighting crime. That is silly. For example, one of my favorite comic book movies, Batman Forever with Val Kilmer. I think that movie is silly, campy as hell, but it's entertaining. Aquaman, it's campy as hell. The first 10 minutes looks like that. What was that movie with the Shark Boy and Lava Girl? It looks like it had bad effects, honestly, at times in the first 10 minutes, like 15 minutes. However, it's entertaining. It's campy as hell, and I love that at times. Not all movies, especially comic book movies, post Nolan, need to be Nolan remakes. Need to be Nolan spin-offs in a sense, because that's what they all are. They're all a spin-off of that style of Nolan. And
well, you know what? I can't disagree with that part at all, because there was like the infection of Nolan throughout the comic book movie universe, where everything had to be dark, gritty, and realistic. And I can say Aquaman is, I think it's course correction for DCEU, but it still sucks. It sucks as a movie, but it does represent something better as far as what the DCU can offer, simply because it's not forcing itself to be grim and forcing itself. Because imagine if it was like angry, just world beaten version of Aquaman in polluted river water or something. How stupid would that have been? It would have been dumber than what we already saw. So at least there's some form of course correction on that end. Aquaman is still trash. Let's get it up out of here. Let's talk about some actual comic book movies that were good and were worth my damn money.
No, let's just keep talking about Aquaman a lot more, please.
Oh my God, I'm seeing you already, Burgos.
The only other thing I'll add, because Matt nailed it perfectly. Yeah, technical level, and it's entertaining. Also, this is the one kind of movie, and that's probably why nobody's really touched any of this stuff yet. Even Namor with Marvel, this is a hard one to get right. This is a character for the most part throughout comic book history is kind of looked at in a goofy way. Awful costume. He talks underwater, breathes water. He's a fish man thing. It's weird. This is the one that really could have just been a clusterfuck. And the fact that it is a good, solid, entertaining movie with some fantastic special effects, and in an era where what haven't we seen? I mean, fucking Fast and the Furious has cars jumping from one building to another. I mean, even Fast and Furious car thief movies do insane special effects. So to take me underwater to a world I've never seen, make it work somehow, and have amazing action, entertaining, I give it maybe extra credit for that fact, because boy, that is a type of story that could have went off the rails real quick. Yeah. And yet somehow they got it right. And it was, I went in expecting trash, and I was pleasantly surprised.
And I will add that trench scene sold the movie. Like that alone, like, there are certain scenes that just, like, that's all I need from the movie. Like, I know the rest of the movie, like, I have some issues with it, but, like, that scene alone, not the greatest example, because the rest of the movie is pretty good, but, like, Rogue One for Star Wars, like, that scene with Darth Vader at the end, the rest of that movie could be trash. The rest of the movie could be dog shit. That could be, like, Solo. But if it has that scene with Darth Vader at the end, I am
Solo
all for that.
Bad. Solo
wasn't that bad. It wasn't, of course. But, I mean, the internet does the internet things. You know how they do.
Yeah, so I'm willing to just give y'all whatever you need to hear, so we just get off this Aquaman topic. I'm just whatever. Aquaman movie of the year, Jason Momoa, Oscar nominee, whatever.
Can we please record that and put it on Twitter tomorrow? Just that section, Aquaman, greatest movie ever, please.
Yes, I can do that. I can do that pretty easy.
Please.
As long as the sarcasm in my voice shines through in that clip.
None of that.
Just total garbage. So, if y'all want to talk about some real comic book movies, let's talk about Endgame, though.
Yes,
okay.
We're gonna go to that first. We're not gonna do MMA.
Well, we're already on it. I'm already on it. Why not?
Yeah, because hey, we talk about MMA all the time. I mean, yeah. All right, here we go. Let's run through MMA real quick. All right, Namajunes got slammed on her head. Yeah, it was a spike, but hey, she was holding on to a submission. So cool, legal, done. Conversation over with. I picked Kevin Lee to beat RDA. One Championship has a really dumb name for their event this weekend. And yeah, and KSW 49 should be good. I'm actually looking forward to that. I'll be up Saturday morning to watch it. Yeah, so all right, so Endgame. What's up?
So you pretty much gave a sneak peek of the trenches. So if anybody wants to go now watch the trenches after this, you can get further depth and all those things. If you go out
Yes,
there.
yes. Go to the trenches.com. You can find that video and the YouTube channel on our YouTube page, homepage. It's right there. Wow. Anthony.
All right, so I guess we'll talk about the Deontay Wilder thing too. I guess.
I mean, hey,
I'm sure you talked about that a lot already today, right?
What are your thoughts, Matt? I want to know you because you are the expert in the boxing stuff. I respect your. I want to know what you think because that I haven't liked Deontay Wilder pretty much ever. I mean, most of the people he's fought, I usually go for. I just like when he like punched that guy it was like on the Spanish TV show, and he was like in a suit or whatever. And he legit punched him.
Jaw in the mascot suit.
Yeah. Like he just comes over such a dick, and this is just taking it to the next level. But Matt, please tell me that you agree he is a dick.
I don't know if I'm gonna go that far. And look, like I've interviewed Deontay Wilder. I've been in camp with him quite a few times, so like I've been around him. I've been around his family, so like I know Deontay in a way. Luckily, I'm not on a channel or associated with the channel anymore where I have to suck up to him, so that's nice. Just hold on, just saying, that's all. Just throwing that out there. But I think Deontay is one of those guys that he just says really stupid things a lot of the time. Like that's what it really comes off to me. And do I think he has some malice in his heart to want to kill Dominic Brazil? No. However, that's beside the point. Like that really doesn't matter at this stage. He has used this line to sell fights numerous times. Has been called out on it every single time. Has been, air quotes, reprimanded by the WBC a couple times for it, I believe, or at least once. It's time for somebody, Al Heyman, whoever it is, to step him aside and go, look, we get you signed the fight. Awesome. Stop using this line. Stop. At the very least, it's just putting bad PR on him. And at some point when he does really have to go sell a big fight and let's say go on Good Morning America, go on, let's say, more of the mainstream sort of platforms to promote things that aren't innately sports, he's going to have to either change up his game a little bit, change up his style of promoting, or somebody's going to ask him about this. And he's going to have to address it. And he's going to have to figure out how to address it. And knowing Deontay Wilder, knowing how he conducts himself within media interviews, I worry about that. I don't think he's particularly the best media-trained individual out there, especially when you look at how much he is making. You expect him to be media-trained. He's not. Or at least on the outside looking in, he's not media-trained, and that seems to be an issue. So do I think it's a huge indictment on the sport? No, because we had Paulie saying that to Artem Lobov a week ago, right? It's gonna fucking kill you. And I'll be honest, I play that soundbite all the time because I think it's fucking hilarious. And maybe it's because like Paulie's a joke now, so we don't take him serious. So that's why we don't address it seriously. While Wilder, we do take seriously because he is a serious fighter right now. Though I do understand how there is pushback on the criticism of, or at least the criticism of Wilder in this case, from his fan base. I do understand that. However, I think at this time, you can still be a fan of Deontay Wilder and criticize him for saying this. It's not that hard. It's very easy. It's not the biggest thing in the world. The sky is not falling. However, it is an issue. Like, we can still address it and then move on, in a sense, at least for the boxing community. But I know Anthony may have a different opinion about that.
Oh, I certainly do. Like I do understand why people would have an aversion to this, because to hear someone saying the words that I want to kill somebody and my goal is to end a life and all that, those are not very good things to hear. No. It makes total sense that someone would have an aversion to that. But we are talking about boxing. We're talking about a sport where people have died. We're talking about a sport where people are literally risking their lives every time they walk into the ring. And we've heard this sort of talk before from God knows how many fighters. In MMA, I know this has come about. Frank Mir was talking about Brock Lesnar was going to be the first death in the octagon. He got a little backlash for that. I think he actually lost his WEC commentary gig as a result of that, too. And we've heard these things before, but at the end of the day, we're still watching them beat each other halfway to death. We're still watching it, and we know this is just talk. We know this is just talk. Maybe Deontay Wilder, being the eccentric personality that he is, it comes across more seriously. But I don't believe it any more than I believe Frank Mir, any more than I believe when Ali said it or anyone said these sort of things, because this is just something we're going to hear a lot of, and it may not be pleasant, but hey, we're not talking about a pleasant sport. We're not talking about a pleasant game.
My pushback, unless Jason, you want to jump in, my pushback for that argument is I think those are two different issues. Like I think those are mutually exclusive issues, concepts, situations. Like, yes, boxing is innately violent. People have died, but people have died in the NFL. People have died in other sports that are not just boxing. People have died in cutting weight in MMA. People die. We understand that this is an innate violent sport. However, to push the boundaries of that, or to at least speak on pushing the boundaries of that in a voluntary manner, I think is reprimandable, and that's it. That's why I always address it in the context of the sky's not falling. We should always say sport is violent. This isn't the biggest issue in the world. We should be more, especially in boxing, more worried about conflicts of interest in sanctioning bodies. We should be more worried about weight cutting, more worried about PEDs. There's a lot of things that we should be more worried about than Deontay Wilder's comments or any fighter's comments that are like this. However, it's still deserving of a reprimand because it is hearkening to those tragedies in boxing, those tragedies in MMA, those tragedies in sports where people did lose their life unnecessarily. And I think if you hear any of the fighters that are alive today that have killed people in the ring, unfortunately, they don't like Wilder saying this. And I think, their representation, their voice being represented in this conversation needs to be addressed because they're the ones really vocal, like Ray Mancini, for example. This should not be used as a PR line. People do die, and that's especially why it should not be used as a promoting line. But then again, it's not the world's falling. This guy's not falling. Should Deontay Wilder be banned for 6 months, face a huge fine? No. But a slap on the wrist, hey, don't do that, I think is fine enough.
You see, I have a problem with the policing of language, and I do know that there was talk of that in wake of the Conor and Khabib brawl with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. But just a week before that hearing, Adrian Bronner said terrible things to Manny Pacquiao. It's so we're used to dealing with harsh language all the time. And I of course, knowing my track record as far as speaking out about certain inequalities and social injustice, and I know the same goes for you too, Matt. I don't agree with hateful language. I don't agree with hate speech. However, I do think in the context of something like this, it's kind of a non-issue. I just don't see it as that big of a deal, especially when it is not something. I'll say it's more problematic to have comments like Adrian Bronner saying to Manny Pacquiao about having dog for takeout or whatever. I think that's much more problematic than say, oh, I want to kill someone in the ring.
Absolutely, but that does not mean that saying I want to kill someone in the ring isn't problematic, and it might be a marginal issue.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's not pleasant. But this is what I'm saying. Where as far as reprimanding, I think that's where I have more of a problem. Reprimanding from the sanctioning bodies or athletic commissions, because they will reprimand you for saying certain things or whatever, but they will take the money that comes as a result of the extra promotion from those phrases, from whatever said.
Again, I think these are mutually exclusive issues. Yes, the sanctioning bodies ripping off fighters is an issue. That is completely separate from should sanctioning bodies actually do their job. That's a completely different issue, in my opinion. And also for the idea of contradictions in punishments or ruling by either sanctioning bodies or athletic commissions. Yes, those exist. But in an isolated case, Deontay Wilder's comments should be reprimanded. And it's on the duty of the sanctioning body, especially in boxing. In MMA, they don't have that as much. So the athletic commission, that's more on their side, to sort of uphold the spirit of the sport, the nature of the sport, to promote the goodwill of the sport. And saying that as a promoting line is not promoting the goodwill of the sport, the good nature of the sport in any way. It just isn't. And again, like I said, sky's not falling. I love Deontay Wilder as a fighter. I know, Jason, you don't think he's the greatest guy, but that's fine. Like that's the good part about this. We can have a difference of opinion, but however, the one thing we should not have a difference of opinion of is Deontay Wilder's comments should be reprimanded. They should not be allowed in this space because it does harken back to actual tragedies that happen in this sport that have happened within our lifetimes. I forget the boxer's name, and I should. It was like that the boxer that died in New York that created the health.
The athletic commission rules about the brain scans and whatnot.
Yes. That now they have the whole health insurance policy that has to be taken out for events.
Like $1 million policy on every event and stuff.
And look, so like that happened like 2010, like that before I entered this space, but it happened within my lifetime following the sport. We should at least push that out of the community, out of the culture as a promoting line because it isn't good for the sport. Is it the worst thing in the sport? No. Is it top 10 worst things in the sport? Absolutely not. However, we are multi-talented people here, guys. We can address multiple issues at once. We can address multiple issues within boxing, within sanctioning bodies at once. So that's why I think we should separate these issues that you've addressed and isolate them and address them individually because they are individual issues.
All issues are related. This cannot stand. It doesn't matter because assault rifles are legal.
Can I just add, everything Anthony's saying, everything Anthony's saying is dead on, and it's true. You can't, censor speech or stuff like that. But I also agree with Matt in that boxing has been, as far as like some of the major sports, as tasteless as it can get. And this goes back way back. This is Ali calling people gorillas or Uncle Toms and all that kind of stuff. Even probably farther back than that. But you have to have like a taste limit. You have to have a point where, okay, that's enough. Like, just like when people are arguing or something like that, and it looks like it's getting into a fight. All right, okay, it's enough. Or the proverbial flagrant foul. Like, you have to have a limit. And in a sport where people can die, saying I'm going to possibly try to kill someone is the limit. And I think you need to reprimand in a way. I don't know how much you have to reprimand to one, send a message to everybody else. Chill that fuck out with that kind of nonsense. And also, he can handle it. This is one of the richest boxers in the world and one of the richest athletes in the world for what he's making. He can handle $100,000 fine just to send a message because it has to be said. Okay, we got to stop the line. Like Tyson should have got one on. I'm going to eat your children. That these are the things where we're going too far. So I agree with both of you, but at some point okay, it's enough. Got to have a limit somewhere.
I just want to add one more thing to that because I do like your more kind of in between approach there, Jason. I do want to add.
Time out. How is Jason's approach in between? His fine is $100,000. I had no fine. Mine was a slap on the wrist. How is he the in between?
Because he complimented me first.
Oh, okay.
So we had to say so much more balanced. Good work by you, Mr. Burgos. The way I like the idea though. If you are going to fine for these things, and this is more so about my idea of the hypocrisy in it, to fine fighters for things they say, yet gladly accept the money that comes from the extra promotion that these controversial things generate. Like if you're going to fine the fighters, donate that money to charity. I don't want the athletic commission or any sanctioning bodies to benefit at all from that. Because if it is that bad, which I'm not mad at it being a wrong thing to say and all that. That's cool, but nobody profit from it. Then no one make a profit.
Now, unfortunately, one of I think it's like 7 members on the WBC Supreme Council. One of the members is Brett Yormark, obviously the head of the BTSE or something like that, which is the Barclays Center group, and also the head of Heyman Sports LLC. So clear conflict of interest there. Is anything going to happen? No. The WBC is going to have a statement like they had today that's non-committal. And they're going to do nothing about it because they're going to be happy taking the money from these controversial statements, like Anthony says. And the world's going to run just because boxing is a niche sport and people really don't care that much outside of it when these comments are made. Let's just be honest. It's us, the hardcores, that want the sport to be bigger than what it is. that want to sort of clean up the language of the sport, clean up the nature of the sport to make it more palpable to a mainstream audience. That just doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon, let's be honest. But I don't know how still you think Jason's the in-between to our proposals.
Well, because of that, I say we
Anthony.
should go back to Aquaman conversation.
Hey, let's just Aquaman doesn't exist. Aquaman died. Someone a spear went through Aquaman. His gills were skinned off and he was fried at a cookout. Okay, Aquaman doesn't exist.
Matt, what do you want to see Aquaman 2?
Not anytime soon.
Thank you, Matt. A voice of reason, finally.
Hey, I know we're never getting Man of Steel 2, but like I'm still pulling for Man of Steel 2.
No, but we'll get Superwoman.
Hey.
Yeah.
I guess.
They don't know what they're doing over there, clearly.
They really don't.
No.
It's really a shotgun approach. It's like whatever. It's just trying stuff. At least Shazam was good.
It's kind of like this YouTube channel.
I didn't get to see that.
Trying stuff.
Like this particular show, normally your shows are very well organized and stuff. Today is not like that.
You know what's sad is like I have all my topics in a row like usual, and I'm just looking at them like, nope, not today.
Let's just go to the bottom one next. Nova, go next.
Well,
Just
the
go-
bottom one's Avengers. So
I guess we have to talk about people hitting each other for money a little bit.
Well,
I'll put it this way.
Next fight topic, Matt. Let's bring it on.
But just try to switch up here a little bit. Am I the only one that thought Jose Aldo won that fight? And
yes, you are the only person that thinks that.
Okay. Okay, I thought so.
Just like Anthony's the only one that doesn't like Aquaman, you're the only one that
Hey,
go Aquaman.
you know what? It's okay, man. I scored 29-28. I was like on my live show. I'm like, what is this? And then I look at MMA decisions. I'm like, oh wow, I am apparently the only one that thinks this. Damn it. What's next for Jose Aldo? Because he was on sort of the run to I think a final title shot and then retiring. I think it's sort of what he wanted. I know maybe that's not the marquee topic to talk about, but I've always been a huge Jose Aldo fan. Followed him since WBC. What's next for him in your minds?
I hope 155.
Yeah.
That's really the move that's been missing from his career. 155, man. It provides so many exciting matchups. It provides new life. It's just something different for Aldo because honestly, obviously with him losing to Volkanovski, we're not going to see him in a featherweight title fight anytime soon. And we probably weren't going to anyway because he has been finished twice by Max Holloway. Maybe if Frankie Edgar were to emerge victorious at UFC 240, and that's definitely not something I want to bet on. But if Frankie Edgar were to beat Max Holloway, then all right, maybe Aldo finds his way back to a title shot. But 155, man, is where it's at. That's where a lot of those money fights are. You want that big paycheck to close out your career, perhaps go on a title run in that division, which with his star power, he could do that with 2 wins, maybe. I say just go 155, man. Finish out with a bang. We all want to see it. He won't have to cut the weight. He looked like death on the scales ahead of 237. It's time to knock it off, man. 155.
I mean, and we're also living in an era where it's becoming finally the popular thing of stop trying to go down in weight when things aren't working for you at your, your primary division, and everybody's going up. Everybody's realizing, damn, I'm trying to be the bigger man lower and just cutting less weight is the better thing. Fuck, we're getting UFC Rochester, which is a welterweight fight between 2 lightweights. As proven, we're seeing a lot of guys go up in weight and be very successful. This is a guy who's a great fighter. Oh, everybody knows how hard it's always been for him to cut weight. He's only getting older. Let's see Jose Aldo not cutting weight and healthier. It worked out really well for Donald Cerrone, and then he hit a limit. But Donald Cerrone was on a tear at welterweight. So let's see Jose Aldo. Anthony said it perfectly. There's so many interesting fights. Like at featherweight, what's left? Ortega, I guess. Zabit, no. I mean, all those guys are kind of in the mix for the title. He's out of the mix. Let's see some fun fights and main events and make some really good money. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Jose Aldo Justin Gaethje or Cerrone or even Iaquinta? You want to match them up? He lost. Who wouldn't want? That's a main event easy like that. That has to be the move. Or just retire. He's been referencing retiring for 5-6 years now. Then just retire, I guess.
Is he on like the DC timeline where it's like it's a timeline, but it's not really a timeline? Like,
That's exactly what it's looking like. He's talked about retirement for so long, man. I really wanted to see him and Eddie Alvarez. That was the fight I really wanted. Of course, Eddie Alvarez being in one now, that's not going to happen. But man, I really wanted that fight. I think you could put Aldo up against just about anybody in the top 15 of that division, and you're going to have a good day. And let's not forget that he's been chasing a rematch with Conor McGregor forever. If you can convince McGregor to take that, depending on what happens with his next fight and stuff, that fight would sell. That is a good fight. That's a bankable main event and something that could put a lot of dollars in his pocket, man. I just don't see why he hasn't made this move already.
I completely agree with both you guys' points. I think there's tons of fights at lightweight that just mouth-watering. Justin Gaethje fight alone. Like, imagine those guys going leg kick for leg kick. That would be like, that would make me just cringe up in pain watching those guys kick each other. Oh my God. But I mean, obviously, everyone at 155 right now seems like a monster in terms of just size. Seeing Jose sort of adapt to the size disadvantage that he probably is going to have at 155, that would be interesting to see. And plus, what's his timetable like? Does he have 2 years left in the sport, 3 years left in the sport? Could he go off into Bellator, for a late stage in his career? Could we see the Eddie Jose Aldo fight eventually at some point in time down the line in sort of a Bellator 1 matchup? I don't know. But Aldo has so much money on the table if he wants it, and he's still relatively young. He's, 34, 35? I mean, he's still, relatively speaking, a young guy in the sport. He has at least a few years left. Speaking of a guy that doesn't have a few years left, Anderson Silva. Are we all in agreement that he should just retire? Like, that was sad to watch.
I see. I mean, if he has a serious leg injury, which I guess now they're saying that he doesn't have to have surgery, which is very good. Surgery at 44 years old is a lot different than surgery in your 20s or 30s. So that's some glimmer of hope. But I don't mind Anderson Silva still competing. It's just the caliber opponent that you put him up against. Anderson Silva is still a UFC caliber middleweight. He still beats the large majority of the middleweights on the roster now. It's just that we're not going to see him beat anybody in the top 10. We're not going to see him, avenge the Chris Weidman losses, or we're not going to see him smash Kelvin Gastelum or challenge Robert Whittaker. Those things are non-existent. But Anderson Silva versus a Sam Alvey, okay, he can do that. Anderson Silva versus a David Branch, two guys who both are kind of at the end of their careers. That can happen. You can have, some one-off matches at 205 as well. Anderson Silva competed very well at light heavyweight. Once again, not having to cut the weight might be a little easier for him to do it. I see value in him still fighting, but it's time for us to not look at Anderson. And not that we have much, but his bookings have been consistent with someone who is still a top contender, and that is not right.
And that's a difficult thing for the UFC. And that therein lies the rub in that he's still pretty good for a 44-year-old professional fighter, which is rare, even for MMA. And you want to get value and squeeze the value out of him, but putting him against the upper echelon of the division is difficult. Jared Cannonier was that in between that. They're putting him against a good fighter, but he's not a name. So, because that's the thing too, you want to get name value out of Anderson Silva, because Anderson Silva's in a position, and that's where they perfectly use him against Israel Adesanya. He's like a kingmaker. He's the guy you put your next big star against. Oh, he beat Anderson Silva. The casuals will be blown away, even the diehards will go, he lost like this many fights in a row. But he makes a difference in that way. Putting him against Sam Alvey, which is actually a fight that makes a total sense. Dare Branch is like, what does it do for them? Are you really getting the value? Are you trying to get him a win? That's cool. Are you trying to rebuild him? But David Branch versus Anderson Silva or Sam Alvey, what's the sizzle in that? And it's a weird spot for them because he's still pretty good. He competes with pretty good fighters, but, he's going to lose to them. And
sorry.
Yeah, no, you can go. I'm most of the point.
Yeah, because I think that the value in it is that you have this bloated schedule where they just need bodies to fill the cards, and Anderson Silva is still a name that will attract your attention. Because no matter what, I mean, we are done with the idea of Anderson Silva being a top contender, but we'll still watch him because he's Anderson Silva. So as long as that's still there, that value is not there with BJ Penn anymore. But that value is still there with Anderson Silva, and it at least is a roster spot that you can put on a main card or maybe on an ESPN prelim or something to get someone to buy a pay-per-view. It's okay with me.
And the one thing I add though, and it's again the fine line they're walking and the dangerousness of the booking of this. Let's say you put him against Sam Alvey and David Branch, guys that are at the mid to low tiers of their divisions. Let's say he loses to them. Then what? I mean, if he's losing to the top guys, you're like, oh, well, they're the top guys. He competed. He's still so good. If he loses to the lower level guys, then you're starting to head to BJ Penn land. And then it gets real dicey. So, like, what is their outlook? Do they want to just maximize him to this contract, or do they have a long-term plan with him and foresee him still fighting 46 or however long he is? You know, that's the more interesting question, because put him against somebody lesser that he should be and he loses, boy, that value goes down real quick on Anderson Silva.
Excuse me. I think there's not a lot of middleweight for him to do what you're saying, Jason, to like make him be sort of the gatekeeper in a sense for your nice prospects, your hot prospects, and to sort of put them over. There's really no one left. I mean, Bo China's sort of past that stage in a sense right now. I don't think they match them up together. It just doesn't make sense. I would like to see, because it just came into my head, it's a wild thought, but hell, we're on their show. Anderson moved back up to 205 because I thought he always looked really good at 205. That division doesn't have a lot of star power, so you can instantly get a good name. Hell, could even get a title fight in a relatively short amount of time. That's how bad that division is. Why not make like a Johnny Walker Anderson Silva fight in Brazil?
No, I don't want Anderson Silva to die in there.
But yes.
What about Anderson versus like Gus?
I don't want Anderson Silva to die in there.
But see, like I said, like Gus doesn't, for your sort of idea, your hypothesis about how they could matchmake it, or why they would matchmake him a certain way. Gus doesn't do anything for them anymore, in my opinion.
But it's a main event, though. That's a value fight. You're either going to put him against guys you can make stars, or put him against other names where it's a sellable fight over, say, an actual legitimate fight.
You don't think Anderson Silva, Johnny Walker main event on ESPN Plus in Brazil makes sense?
I think it does. Anthony does. But I think
it makes sense from a promotional standpoint. But
that's what we're talking about.
I want the man to die in there. Like that's really my concern. Like, so I say maybe I say Anderson Silva stays at middleweight. Maybe rebook the Uriah Hall fight. That's a style fight that would be entertaining. Of course, there still could be massive damage incurred in that, but it is something where Uriah Hall is not a top contender in the division. Style-wise, they could put something exciting together. You might have another version of the Silva Adesanya fight with that sort of like kung fu movie vibe to it.
What about Jacare? Because he's kind of in limbo now.
And they don't like each other anymore. They kind of have falling out.
And a falling out. Oh, okay. Because I thought that fight wouldn't be made because they were friends, but I guess they're not friends anymore.
I want to say I saw some reporting maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago about like some drama and how like Jacare's not training with them anymore or something like that. I forget. Maybe I'll look it up while you guys are talking. But I want to say they aren't particularly friends anymore. Per se.
I see, like a Jacare fight, I'm not mad at that either, because at least age-wise, we're talking about the same realm. So that's not totally out of control. Johnny Walker, on the other hand, that is out of control. That is nuts. That's irresponsible matchmaking. That's BJ Penn versus Yair Rodriguez to me.
Exactly.
So over the top. That,
but like, watched it. You watched it, I bet you
cried
did.
the whole damn time. It's a fight that just doesn't need to happen.
What about Weidman 3?
By the way, very quickly, I was right in a sense. Apparently, Jacare came at Anderson for getting that interim title shot with no, it wasn't for Adesanya. What was this for? Oh no, sorry. Anderson, because Jacare wanted a title shot. Anderson was like, "No, you're not gonna get a title shot. You don't deserve it." And apparently there was some beef from that.
Okay.
So
they probably squashed that by now. But yeah, like that's Anderson versus Jacare. I'm not mad at that either. But I mean, I'm much more comfortable with him retiring. I'll just put that out there. But I do see the value in at least booking him some fights that make some form of sense, because Anderson has a big enough name to where Ryzen will scoop him in a heartbeat. The one just signed Vitor Belfort, for crying out loud. They would definitely make an offer to Anderson Silva, especially with the whole martial arts mystique around that promotion, that whole ideology that they're pushing. Anderson Silva fits right in that line. Bellator, of course, the senior citizen circuit would be perfect for him in Bellator. I'm sure if Oscar De La Hoya is sitting around and he's longingly looking at a pair of MMA gloves.
Yo, Tito Ortiz, Anderson Silva, Golden Boy MMA. Anthony, we're there. I'm hyped.
Oh God!
But Tito's in Combate now.
Yeah, Tito is in Combate now. But I mean,
sucks,
like say like Dan Henderson, like Anderson Silva versus Dan Henderson, too in Golden Boy. Something that makes sense to me. Like, all right,
I would watch it.
That's not fun. That's not fun as Tito.
Two old men out there, and they are kind of about the same level. Whatever.
Juan David Hernandez in the chat saying, "Make the Roy Jones fight. It's been marinating for 10 years." And I will add to it. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Yeah. Roy Jones Jr. also has a UFC Fight Pass streaming deal for his promotional company. Hey, I'm just saying, stars are aligning here.
Wasn't there rumors of Roy and Vitor in one though?
There was.
I mean, apparently they were discussing that, but I don't know how serious those talks got. But still, when we were talking about Anderson Silva, though, we have to start thinking about this level of matchmaking to where it's all about name and spectacle and show. Either you're putting him up against a jobber that he can murder, or you're putting him up against a name that sells because it's sexy. That's really it. Those are your options with Anderson Silva right now.
And if anyone knows sexy, it's me.
Straight facts.
Wow, the lies being told on this show. The lies. Come on now, you gonna let this foolishness happen on your show, man? I'm disappointed with you right now, man.
That's fucking illegal.
Exactly, Dana. You're right. It is.
Piece of shit. Goodness. I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
Oh, Paulie.
Hey, Jason, another comment like that, he's gonna play the R. Kelly soundbite.
That's stupid. Use your common sense.
Yeah, that one's so good. That one makes me laugh every time. I'll play that when it's not needed. Speaking of not needed, Thug Rose getting slammed like that. Oh man, that was not needed for my emotions. But I will say this: that was easily knockout of the year, instantaneously for me.
Oh shit! Did I put my screen on all over there?
No, you're
sorry.
Good. You're good. Don't worry.
Okay. I'm honestly. You got that over Raymond Daniels with the 720 right hook?
Look,
that thing looked weird.
No, it's not that look weird. It's like the level of competition. It's Raymond Daniels fighting some jobber MMA guy for his MMA debut. Like, let's put that into context here. Israel Adesanya has crazy knockouts to start out his MMA career. Like, always put that into context. Jessica Andrade did that when Rose was honestly on her way to a career-defining performance. Thug Rose looked so fluid in there, and it looked just effortless. Like, her jab was on point, her movement was on point, the check hook, everything was on point. I was getting like Demetrius Johnson vibes from it. Like, I was really just thoroughly impressed with what I was seeing, and it was dominant. Like, every second. Andrade had zero success up until that knockout. So it's like upset of the year, comeback of the year, knockout of the year, all rolled into one. And plus the level of competition, who she did that to, how it was a straight. She was out cold. There wasn't any follow-up to it. She was done. And plus, I am always a sucker for slams because, I mean, come on, Rampage Jackson with the Rona. As a young MMA fan back in the day, that definitely got me more as a hardcore watching that on VHS off of Hollywood Video. Shout out to Hollywood Video, RIP. Better than Blockbuster, definitely. But digressing.
Well, I got a question for both of you, though. Which got you more excited and jumped out of your chair? Thug Rose getting knocked down the slam or MVP getting knocked out?
Definitely Thug Rose getting slammed.
Definitely Thug Rose. Yeah. I mean, the MVP thing, was crazy.
It was silly. To me, it was silly. I'll be honest. It was a silly vibe to it.
Yeah, it was kind of strange, but this is one thing. Now, correct me if you think I'm wrong on this one, but my first thought when that happened was MVP doesn't have much of a chin, because I just didn't think it was possible to generate but so much power from that position that Lima threw that shot. This foot positioning and everything, it was great on his part. It was an opportunistic strike. He took it. He got the win, and I would expect nothing less of a fighter of his caliber.
Mm-hmm.
But just the look of that punch, it looked like he couldn't put the maximum amount of force behind it necessary to floor someone the way MVP got floored. Makes me think MVP's chin might be a little questionable.
Wow, hot take there from Ant. Okay.
I mean, I look at similar to like Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez, and that's why Lima is so good. That dude has power in the hands, power in his legs. Like, I guess I liked it in a way. It's still not as better than Andrade and Namajunes, but the setup, the well-timed kick into flooring him and putting him in a position to do that. And then also, I'm loving this gif with the Thor hammer that's going around.
Yes.
Shit's awesome. That shit is awesome.
When I saw that, I'm like, whoever makes, I think it's like Ray Rod on Twitter. I forget the Twitter handle, but whoever does that, props to you. Those are amazing. You've done a bunch of them in the past. Awesome work.
I want to go on the Sherdog Fight Finder and change the KO method by millionaire. That's what I want to do.
Is it better than the Cerrone Rick Story like Dragon Ball Z video?
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely better than that. That is probably the best just weird mashup. Although you know what that Connor versus Eddie Dragon Ball Z one.
That's a good one.
Pretty vicious too. But this one, yeah, this one takes the cake.
There's something about beating someone with a hammer. It's funny. Like, it gets me every time, man. Some Looney Tunes vibe to it. I'm there for it. Drop an anvil on him next time. Go
We
for
just
that.
need to put Acme on the side of it.
Yes.
It's all good.
Yes. We're giving you free ideas. Whoever made that video, you're welcome.
That one's for free.
But since we talked about Bellator a little bit there, let's jump to Bellator. This was a pretty good card in a lot of ways. I've yet to see the entire card. I've watched mainly just the main card. I wouldn't say I'm shocked really by both outcomes. I mean, maybe how quick the main event was stopped, how fast Chandler was stopped. That was a little bit shocking in a way. But I sort of suspected that Chandler was going to have a drop-off at some point, that his chin was going to be checked at some point. He's had a run sort of late. The previous fight was weird. We just sort of suspect, I at least thought Chandler's time was coming. I didn't think it was going to be to one of the Pitbull brothers, because also another sort of duo that's been around the game for a very long time, but they were going to have a drop-off sort of around the same time. And again, MVP, I thought he looked atrocious against Paul Daly. I have never been sold on him as an elite welterweight. Douglas Lima, while he has lost to some elite welterweights, has always looked pretty on point all the time. His consistency has always been there in terms of just ability. And plus, he has just a better, well-rounded game. Were you two guys overall shocked by the outcomes of both of these sort of main events, co-main events? And also, do you agree with me in a sense that Bellator maybe not be the most happy about what just happened? Chandler being the poster boy for a few years now. MVP, I think, was their sort of golden ticket to the UK market. That seems like it might be up in smoke. What do you think Bellator's sort of internal meetings are like right now? Jason, I'll go to you since you're more on, I would say, again, the regional scene beat or the minor league beat. Your thoughts on Bellator's event overall and the relative success of it?
I mean, in terms of the surprising, I felt Lima had a good chance. I was, curious how he would play against him. But I remember, and I told Anthony this too, I interviewed Douglas Lima right before his Koreshkov fight, and I had brought up the idea of possibly facing MVP or Daly and bringing MVP. Like, man, your kicks are pretty good. His legs sure look like they'd be perfect for your kicks. All he did was maniacal laugh. like he already kind of knew where that fight would go eventually one day, and that's kind of what happened. But I wasn't too surprised. The Patricio thing only surprised me because I was thinking he was going to win, and then I did that pros pick article. I got 16 different opinions. 13 dudes said, nah, Chandler's going to win. Bigger, stronger guy. The bigger good guy is going to beat the small good guy, and completely changed my opinion. But the thing I brought up to Anthony that night, and I think this is the thing that always holds Bellator back, is that they don't really have classic fights in terms of like the top guys when they match up big deal fights don't deliver in those classic forms. UFC in just the last 4 or 5 months, Pori Holloway, Adesanya Gastelum, and even a lot of people like Cerrone and Iaquinta. I thought it was a good fight, but people were loving it. Mm-hmm. Just in a few months, they had great fights. Whenever someone says, oh, what's your best favorite Bellator fight? Everybody still goes to Chandler and Eddie Alvarez. Oh my God, that was so long ago. Like Bellator so badly needed like Chael and Fedor to have a fucking war for 3 rounds in a back and forth. Like they needed Patricio and Chandler. Like they don't have those landmark moments like, oh yeah, this is builds fans. Those moments that you go, oh man, that fight was insane. I'm gonna watch next week. I want to see that guy. They don't have that in there. It kills. I mean, they have good fights like Strauss and Patricio Pitbull and like Weissel and Patricio. They have good fights, but not those classic wars from a fight you're super excited for that delivers, and it hurts them. The card itself was solid. You had some Jack Swagger, aka Jake Hager. His heel turn thing was funny. Patricio saying "fuck you" to the crowd for booing it was fantastic. But I mean, it was a good card. It was a good solid card, and I don't think they're too mad. I mean, they probably know just like you, Chandler. You know, he probably was due for this, and Patricio's sellable and he's still a very, very good featherweight right now. I don't know why he wasn't on the Sherdog featherweight top 10 before this, but good card. But damn, they badly need like a classic so bad.
Do they finally go to Brazil with the Pitbull brothers? Is it finally time to make their debut in that market?
I asked Pitbull about that like a couple of interviews ago. He said that there was a talk of that possibly happening, and they had the talent before, but Vanderlei being off is a killer because that would have been a perfect guy. Carvalho is a nice star. You got Machida, that's a good one. Machida, the Pitbull brothers, that's the main one. They probably, if they can go to Hawaii, I can't see why they wouldn't go Brazil, but it doesn't seem like it's a priority. It seems like Europe is totally a priority. Yes. Maybe they have the sense. They had their people go to Brazil, and maybe there's just not a strong interest. Maybe, Brazil is like the Mexicans of MMA. Like that's like the strongest culture outside the U.S. And maybe Brazil is a straight up UFC country, and maybe they just don't see the money in it. Maybe there's just not a demand for it there. They should, but I guess they'd rather go to Europe. And makes sense. UFC isn't going to England and the UK as much as you would hope. They're doing it all the time, so maybe they build a base by doing Europe a lot more.
They did go to, I think, Israel in like the last 12 months.
Israel.
They can shell out the money to go to Brazil. I think it's worth the experiment because again, like you said, it's the 1-to-1 for the Mexican market in boxing. It is. Mm-hmm. It is that market outside the U.S. that is a gigantic, feverish market for the sport, and to not tap into that just seems like a huge misstep. And plus, I would assume, I don't have these numbers in front of me, I would assume the population of Brazil dwarfs the UK's, dwarfs France, dwarfs Israel, dwarfs, Germany, dwarfs Italy, dwarfs whatever countries they're thinking about going into. Brazil is a market that they need to start making a priority because, like you say, the UFC does have a monopoly in that market for big U.S. promoters going in there and putting on shows.
And Fight Nights Global, a Russian company, they went to Brazil. How do you Bellator not go to Brazil?
I wanted this topic a little more macro and talk more about the minor leagues in a sense. And I wanted to open the floor for both you guys to jump in and just have a discussion about it. What is the state of the air quote minor leagues of MMA? When I'm going to say that's everyone but the UFC, just for argument's sake. Bellator, Ryzen 1, Invicta, PFL, LFA, KSW, the whole gambit. What is the current state of it, especially compared to, let's say, a decade ago? Pre-Fox deal, pre-everything. Is it in a healthier spot? Is it in a better spot than, let's say, 2009? Is the talent overall better out there? Is the production better? Like, just, again, overall thoughts about the state of the minor leagues of MMA and how it's doing right now. Jason, I'll go to you first, unless, Anthony, you look like you want to jump in.
Oh, no, go ahead. Jason first.
It's as strong as ever. And like I'm glad you made the comparison of the now to 10 years ago, because what's unique in that now we're getting strong. God, who would have thought Dagestan would be such an epicenter of MMA talent 10 years ago? Like, we knew some Russian fighters, but damn, Dagestan now, you know, Combate is doing smart things in that they're going and mining places like Peru, which supposedly has a strong MMA market. They go to Mexico and stuff like that. The sport itself is really as strong as ever. You got guys making more outside the UFC. You can leave the UFC and still make a lot of money, good money. And when I interviewed Michael Schiavello, the commentator for One Championship, he said it perfectly. I asked him, is this like one of the best periods of time in MMA? Because you like everything you said, KSW, Combate, ACB, you know, all these companies all over the world doing really good things, getting TV deals in the US and all this kind of stuff. He said it wasn't the golden era because everybody looks at the Pride UFC as like kind of the golden era. He said it perfectly in a perfect broadcaster term, the global era, in that the sport really is more global than it's ever been. It's not just US, Brazil, Japan. It's those three: Japan, China, Singapore, Russia, Sweden, the UK stronger than ever. Ireland, Bellator goes to Ireland now. They're trying to mine Ireland. Smart move. You know, the South America, what Combate is doing. Spain, they're making money there. So it really, the sport globally, and you're getting talent from all over, like, you know, and not to harp on Combate, but in terms of the idea, they get Spain, they got guys from Spain, Peru, you know, Chile and stuff like that. Like, who would those guys are not in the UFC, not to say they can't, but they're finding legit MMA talent there. Who would have thought? And that's the best thing, that now those guys in those countries could very well go to the UFC One Championship. Now we're seeing the sport on a global level as strong as ever. And for all of us that cover the sport, it's good for us too, and the fighters, because it gives us more to cover, more jobs, more money, you know, and it's a beautiful thing.
Anthony?
Yeah, I definitely agree that the state of mixed martial arts is much better now than it was some years ago when the UFC was the only recognizable name out there. I mean, the UFC still holds the lion's share of the market and the lion's share of the elite talent, but by their own business moves, like the Reebok deal, like USADA, like that now the ESPN Plus pay-per-view agreements, they've made it more attractive for a lot of talent to go elsewhere, and that talent is filling out some cards. Like KSW coming up Saturday has some excellent fights on that card, has some very, very good fights on that card that deserve people to check them out. You know, for all the things I say about One Championship, they put on very good fights with good talent. Bellator is more and more you're seeing developing prospects coming organically through Bellator. You're seeing a lot of things that you otherwise would not have seen were this just the UFC and Pride ruling the day. So I'm excited about the state of the sport. I think talent wise, it's more spread around. The level of athlete is rising. Granted, the pay levels, especially in the UFC, need to rise along with it. And there's some big things that are going to hold the sport back from pushing itself even further. But I think also too, we have to look at the presence of all these streaming services. These streaming services now are the gateway for a lot of the otherwise what will be considered regional or second tier organizations, because I ordered DAZN because I need to watch Bellator for work, of course. I get KSW and Combate also as a result. So there's life brought to that. ESPN Plus has decided to add PFL to the mix. So that's going to give that organization a boost as UFC fans are clamoring toward ESPN Plus. So these streaming services are creating all these opportunities where instead of a promotion being just necessitated in finding a broadcast home, finding an NBC or a Fox or a CBS Sports to work with, they can align themselves with a streaming service that also has aligned itself with other combat sport or sporting entities that will inevitably just boost everyone's profile. So there's a lot of good things that we can expect. Now, I would like to see the UFC kind of catch up to the pay scale that these other major sporting leagues have as far as revenue splits. That would be a very welcome thing that can only boost the sport even further. But as it is right now, things are good as far as the growth of the sport and the talent levels there.
I think I've noticed recently a difference in the UFC's business model, especially when we compare it to that 10-year period, right? Pre-Fox era, around that time. That's right around the time that UFC bought up Strikeforce, sort of the last big acquisition of that time for UFC, where they bought up basically every single competitor, from Pride to Strikeforce, everyone in between, and who they didn't buy up, they outlasted. So in comparison to this era, where we have another promotional company on the same network as the UFC, it's definitely a time where the UFC is allowing the competition to grow in a sense, or at least to work. We're not seeing the UFC actively try to buy up other promoters like they did in the last decade. Jason, why do you think that is? Because it definitely is there. There is a difference in how the UFC deals with their competitors to the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, they don't counter program as much as they do. I feel maybe it's them. It could be viewed as them feeling they're the biggest dog in the yard and they don't have anything to worry about. But I also feel like promotions have learned from the failures of Bodog and Strikeforce, Elite XC and stuff like that, overreaching and everything like that. And what's smart about One Championship and Combate specifically, in that they, instead of saying we're going to go head on with the UFC or try to compete, they went and said, we're just going to go to these underserved regions of the world, and One Championship is going to Asia, which already has a humongous martial arts culture in a world where we have mixed martial arts. If they would have tried this 15 years ago, maybe it doesn't work, but now mixed martial arts is so huge, everyone is kind of more aware. And then they're smart enough that things like Muay Thai, kickboxing, which are big culturally in the South Pacific, they blend that in. So it's just not MMA, it's all those things. So they're catering to this market and doing well in that market. Combate said Latin market. We're going to go to South America, Central America, Spain. They learn from that too. And you have KSWs, ACBs. They were smart enough to build in their regions, slow build, and a slow burn, and not try to overreach. Like Elite XC overreached. Like they were around for a little while. Like, okay, let's go CBS. We're going to be on prime time, and we're going to be out giving these big contracts. And they just overreach. Even Strikeforce overreached. And then their ownership, which was like the Sacramento Kings owners at the time, said, we can't afford it anymore. It's losing money for us. We're going to sell. And it screwed over Scott Coker. Bellator has had rumors about, maybe Viacom might sell them because they might not be making. So Bellator and PFL are in the toughest position. And I heard an interesting rumor about PFL that maybe they may not be in super strong ground either. To go head on with the UFC in the US is tough. But Combate is kind of going head on in a different way, and One Championship's in a whole other part of the world. And KSW, ACB, so those have a chance to do well. And everyone's learned from the failures of other companies. So UFC isn't strong in Asia. They're not strong in those in South America, Central America. So they can't really undercut them because that's not where they have a power yet. I think Bellator, PFL, if they want to, they could, but they probably don't want to worry about them.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Because I didn't even think about that as much as that way of these other promotional companies. They realize, like you said, the U.S. market is innately a UFC market. Let's go to other regions and other markets and be successful there, which they largely are. I mean, if you look at the numbers that KSW can pull in terms of crowds, it's insane. How Ryzen has been reborn in Japan because the UFC never actually went to Japan really and put any sort of real force or brand in Japan, that market. They were able to come back in a sense, the former owners and runners of Pride. Southeast Asia, that's a market that doesn't get served at all. South America, Central America, Mexico, a market that's never been served really by the UFC and always sort of been talked about. That's why these other promotional companies are able to come in here. But the two...
Add one more thing. What's key about it too is that, and I give credit to Combate, when you live in a certain part of the world, you want to see people that look like you.
Yes.
And the UFC going to Asia is a bunch of white guys or white women and, black women, black guys. They don't relate. But, Combate, it's easy for One Championship. They're already based there, so they can get all the talent they need. Combate, even though they're an American-based company, they are gunning Hispanic faces. Yeah. So it connects, and that's just another thing learned too. You can't go to, Mexico with a guy from Sweden. It's not going to work no matter how good he is, so that too.
Right. I'm reminded of, I think I was on your show, Matt, some months ago where it was Francis Ngannou fighting Curtis Blades in Beijing.
Yeah.
And I think this is something like nothing says Beijing like a black from Chicago and a dude from Africa. You know, where they're just kind of putting bodies wherever they can fit them, no matter where the location is, and that's just not going to build audiences in those regions at all. So I had an interesting conversation earlier today with Martin Lewandowski, who is one of the promoters, KSW's, the co-founder of that company, and he was talking about their efforts for expansion. And you know, I asked him, like, where are you aiming for this to be in the near future? Like, what are you foreseeing? And he's saying, like, we got to take over Europe. That's what we know. That's where we're based. We've done, you know, of course we own Poland, but we've been to England and we've been to Ireland, but our expansion plans need to exist in Europe first. And then it's like, hey, if we go to the US and we're looking to co-promote, so when you start having reasonable expectations and you set those goals like that, that's where the companies can grow. That's where the companies can make those gradual leeways into these other markets. You can't do it like Affliction did it, paying the fees that they were paying, or like, I don't know if you've read I think it was MMA Fighting did an in-depth story about the fall of Affliction and how that they just stretched themselves too thin to where one messed up event shut down the whole operation. Where you're talking about, that's the equivalent of UFC 151 shutting down the UFC. Because this one event had to get canceled because the main event fell out and you didn't have anything to replace it, and you already shut out this money and now you can't recover from it. So when you have these organizations that are learning from those prior mistakes, and they're just pushing the boundary the best that they can, and not saying, oh, we are going to be better than this, we're going to be better than that, we're going to be bigger. And no, we are going to exist in our own lane. We're going to get our lane as big as we can. And then maybe I'll put the turn signal on and go to the next lane. But it needs to be that gradual thought process as opposed to this immediate takeover and instant payoff.
Well, with all that in consideration, then how does a PFL and Bellator survive in this current market? Because I think, like you said, Jason, I think everyone sort of knows, but Bellator is not doing the best right now. They definitely got a package delivered from DAZN that helps out for probably at least for the short term. Same with PFL and ESPN, I would assume. But
and Jimmy Iovine just invested into PFL also a couple of weeks ago.
So we do see at least the short term they're going to be around for the next, let's say, 2-3 years. I don't think they're going to be gone. We can at least foresee that. But in the long term, how do they really gain traction in this market when it is such a UFC-dominated, monopolized market in the U.S.? And everyone else has realized, hey, look, we're not going to compete here. We're going to go elsewhere. But PFL has stayed, obviously the offshoot of WSOF, RIP, and Bellator, who's been around for a long time, but originally was more of a Central American product. It was. It sort of catered to that originally, but now over the years, especially in the Bjorn Rebney era, it tried to compete with the UFC. It's now sort of decided this is the hill we're going to die on. Are they going to die on this hill? You know, what's the sort of timetable for these companies, and what's sort of the parameters for success for them, and for them to be sort of viable to their owners in your guys' mind?
At least for PFL, at least they're trying something different. I guess this is sort of what Bellator did originally, the tournament format, and that's something that a lot of UFC fans have been desperately craving, to have this Grand Prix, to have these organized tournaments, as opposed to kind of shotgun matchmaking that you typically see in the the UFC. But Bellator has, I mean, their model is not sustainable by any stretch of the imagination, having UFC cast-offs and the senior citizen circuit being the main driver of views. But I do like the fact that they are trying to look toward the future by picking up certain prospects, picking up an Aaron Pico, picking up an Ed Ruth. The idea that maybe you can develop stars. Now, granted, that may not work, and we've seen Aaron Pico have his stumbles. But the idea makes sense to organically grow talent. You look at Michael Chandler, who is probably the biggest star on their roster. with the exception of like Chael
Fedor.
Sonnen or Fedor or something like that. But Michael Chandler, as far as being a current in his prime fighter, probably their biggest star, he is an organically grown talent. Eddie Alvarez, prior to that, was an organically grown talent. So those names like that the organization brings up itself can be sort of the move forward into just embedding themselves in the fans' minds and developing some level of brand loyalty.
Yeah, but it's a double-edged sword here because let's be honest, one championship, they got probably their biggest rating and publicity hit with that card with Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson. I'll be honest. No, I know Jason's gonna hate this. That was the first one card I have watched in some time. Okay, because just bad timing for me on the West Coast. It's a bunch of guys I don't know or care about yet. Just being honest. But you put Demetrius Johnson, who I was like deeply, deeply offended, got air quotes traded to one. I'm gonna watch him. Eddie, of course, got brutally knocked out, but it still has that effect. Like you say, Fedor is still probably the number one ratings draw for Bellator right now. Like there seems to be an issue because, like you say, I agree with you, Ant. The path for long-term success is homegrown talent. However, it's clear right now, at least for the competitors, really for the UFC, or at least the ones that have been trying to compete with the UFC in the U.S. market. One championship I know is a predominantly Asian brand, but they are talking about doing U.S. events. They do now have a Turner Sports deal, whatever that is, in Bleacher Report Live. But we know, but they're trying, right? If these entities can only really compete with the UFC in terms of metrics with offshoot UFC talent, how do they ever survive off of their homegrown talent that's not really thriving at this point? How do they get long-term success? It just seems like every step they take 3 steps back. To be honest, unfortunately, that just seems to be the market right now.
It's an interesting thing in that, like, I feel more confidence in PFL, because at least PFL is bringing something unique.
They have a
That's
direction.
The way you gotta go about it. Like, I always like bringing about wrestling, comparisons on our show, like ECW back in the day with WWE, something completely different and draw attention that way. Well, Bellator has the right kind of elements, and Anthony nailed it. They're starting to develop talent, just like sort of Coker did with Strikeforce, which he's very good at finding that kind of talent and developing it. But it goes back to kind of what I said. They just need like marquee landmark moments that draw people in and want to stay. Like showing knockout videos, dime a dozen. UFC's got them too, and they're doing it with their biggest stars. Like you have to have those wars and those moments and those guys that somebody grasp on. That's why Chandler is still the biggest star. He had the Eddie Alvarez fights. So people like Chandler came back more for Chandler. They're not getting that from Patricio. They're not getting that from some of these other guys. And that's unfortunate. It's almost a bad luck thing, but they have all the elements, and it felt like it was going that way when they got Rory and Phil Davis and Bader, but just they can't get over the hump. With PFL, what they're doing, and Anthony referenced like stay in your lane, that's a smart thing. They have a unique concept, unique format, and they also are trying their best not to overstretch. They have 12 people per division. It's not like a roster of like 300-400 people. It's 12 people. That's how they can hand out $1 million checks, because they're not paying a lot of people. They're working their schedule's 6-7 months. They're doing 2-3 shows an event. Like perfect example, I noticed it this year, and it's something that worries me, but maybe it's just smart money. Last year they kind of moved around a lot. This year they have the first 6 events in 2 cities.
I saw that.
That's a little weird. Like first 3 in New York, next 3 in Jersey. Not even like New York, LA, New York and Jersey. So that worries me a little bit. But maybe it's just smart money. But they have a chance in that they bring a unique concept. They developed some nice talent. Ray Cooper became a star.
Yes.
Kayla Harrison is money. She's like Chael's son for PFL, but relevant now. Like she's only gonna get better. And to me, I feel by 2021 she'll be one of the best pound for pound fighters in the female division. So they have that. They have nice talent. They just have to keep developing. The question is, can they hold on? Can they build something? If this ESPN thing doesn't work for them, I don't know. Like this may be their shot. If this ESPN thing doesn't work next year, I don't know if it's necessarily guaranteed. Bellator at least still has Viacom's humongous conglomerate money, so they'll have a chance, unless at some point Viacom's like, yeah, I'm done with this, and it goes somewhere else. But even then, I could see Fox Sports or something like that picking it up. But yeah, Bellator's just got to get some good luck, and PFL's just got to continue to garner attention.
You know what? I think PFL is going to benefit a lot from the ESPN deal.
Agreed.
Because ESPN's invested interest in the UFC. So if you invest in the UFC,
let me just jump in here very quickly. And MMA as a whole, because that ESPN MMA account on Twitter, they promote everything, and I love that. I think that's amazing.
They got Raimondi, they got Ariel Akamoto, so they're investing in the journalism side of it too.
Right. So they're going full on with the sport of mixed martial arts. So the more promotions exist. And then also, I think in terms of leveraging the UFC's power in ESPN, if you have another promotion there, although it may not, of course, it's not going to be competing on the same level as the UFC, but the UFC isn't the only game on that channel. So there's something there. There's something to that to bring more attention to all parties involved. And then let's also not forget that ESPN Plus is heavily invested in Top Rank Boxing as well. So you've got an entity in ESPN that is full on about combat sports. So the more things that can represent combat sports there, that is content to fill. Because also keep in mind too, if you are the broadcaster, live sports is one of the cheapest things you can put on. That's one of the cheapest productions that can be made. So you can have this content on all the time. You can have boxing, you can have UFC, you can have PFL, you can have I would not be surprised if Glory Kickboxing was next. Yep. If they're going to have some sort of combat sports haven, it helps to have all these different promotions. Like I just said about DAZN. Hey, I got it for Bellator, but I do get to watch Matchroom Boxing as well. I do get to watch Combate. I do get to watch KSW as well. So if you have these entities being on the same streaming services, they all in some way become interdependent upon each other. Therefore, also let's keep in mind too that PFL in its previous incarnation as World Series of Fighting was essentially like a feeder league for the UFC. I don't think it was a coincidence that when Dana White was deciding that Ben Askren wasn't fit for the UFC and he needed more experience, that he said, go fight in World Series of Fighting. I don't think that was a coincidence. When you have guys like Justin Gaethje, you have guys like Marlon Moraes, you have people who were standout stars in World Series of Fighting come over to the UFC very seamlessly. Also notice that the fight footage that we started seeing before the ESPN era started, when the UFC was still on Fox, we were seeing fight footage from World Series of Fighting on UFC broadcast to hype up UFC fights. And that is a first. That is something that we just did not see before. We did not see of fights that were fight footage from any promotion that was not broadcast on Fight Pass before that. And so I think when you look at this picture, I think PFL should be okay as long as they don't have a catastrophic failure. I think they should be fine in the long term.
Agreed. And plus, like you said, the ESPN network and conglomerate is a better machine to push you than Viacom and Paramount Network and DAZN. It just is. So they have everything to succeed at this point, and all the tools, all the mechanisms, all the resources, and plus, like we've said, I think they do have a nice direction with their branding. It is different. It does separate them from Bellator, where it's not just the same new metal. Here's flashing lights and here's a ramp. It's something different, and I do appreciate that. And plus, like you say, Jason, Kayla Harrison is definitely some way to watch going forward. And Ray Cooper has become sort of a hardcore darling in a way. And so they've gotten homegrown talent very quickly without really a lot of UFC offshoots. So that's a good thing. It sort of separates them from the competitors. But digressing, I don't know if we want to stick on this anymore or on combat sports at all. I don't know if we want to jump to Avengers now. And okay, we do. Okay.
Yes, Avengers. Avengers. Yes.
Where do we want to start with Avengers, though? I mean, holy shit. Very quickly, spoilers. I mean, we shouldn't have to do this, but...
No, if you ain't seen the movie by now, get your mind right. Get your mind right.
I'll be nice.
See the movie and then watch the rest of the replay.
And then watch the movie like 5 more times because it's completely worth it. Is this... a loaded question. Is this the best Marvel / superhero movie of all time?
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, duh.
It's easy. I mean, Dark Knight is a classic. Dark Knight is great. Black Panther's amazing. Avengers, Civil War, Infinity War. This is amazing movies. But like I go back to comic books when my older brother showed me Wolverine #1 with this, like when I was 6 or 7, and it's been a love affair ever since. Yeah, there's been moments where I got away and came back, but so as a kid, you never think, especially when you learn about movies and how Hollywood works and all that kind of bullshit, you never think it's gonna happen. Like, oh, this is just too ambitious. It's not gonna happen. And then when they started getting on the path, and when it got to like Civil War, you're like, man, I don't know, this could be possible. So to do Infinity War, to get all these characters together, to make something that I was looking at, like I have the Infinity Gauntlet fucking, graphic novel. I have it. Like, so to look at it and see something of that scale come to life in Infinity War, which I thought was amazing, best thing I've ever seen, to then be topped by what Endgame did. And like I don't cry at movies often. There's like 2 or 3 movies that got me to cry. Passion of Christ, and I'm not even religious. Broom with Captain Marvel. That movie's fantastic. And this. Like I was straight up, like I told Anthony, Denzel Washington in his glory getting the whip and just trying to hold it in the big fat tears, because I have invested in these characters, and this is a movie that could have went so wrong. And it went so right. They tied up stories. They connected characters. The dialogue's good. It's not like a big hot mess. It's just like for the size of it, it's too good. And it's mind blowing. Like I still completely am not over it. So like 3 weeks ago, still not over it yet. It's crazy.
I saw it for the 3rd time last weekend, and I'm gonna see it for the 4th time tomorrow. I'm taking my grandma to see it because she hasn't seen it yet. So,
man,
you gotta take
you are
Grams,
a good
right?
grandson.
Hey, you got it. You got to, Grams.
You are a good
She's
grandson.
been calling me up and like asking me for a while. So I'm like, Grams, I'm gonna take you tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Plus, I get to see it again, and then that's the best part about seeing a movie for like a bunch of times. That you get to see other people's reactions to that movie when they haven't seen it before. That's the best. Ant, question to you: best superhero movie of all time?
I don't know.
What?
Ooh, yes, let's get some debate. Let's all be happy and nice here. Fuck that.
No. Here's why I don't know, because it's hard for me to separate this individual movie away from the whole MCU because it's so interconnected. But this is what I'll say for sure: it is by far the best experience I've ever had watching a movie. Period.
Even
the
over
best
Aquaman.
experience.
Even over Aquaman.
I hope the camera catches this, Jason. Like it was the best cinematic experience I've ever had. Like that's for sure. So as a standalone movie itself, it was fantastic. It was great. I don't know if as a standalone movie I like it more than I like Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier, prior to Endgame, Winter Soldier was my clear-cut #1. I had Winter Soldier, then Infinity War, and then Black Panther as my top 3 Marvel cinematic universe movies. So I don't know where I put Endgame among but the experience itself, I can't think about the movie in isolation because these characters were built up for so long, and one thing I love that they all stay true to those characters. It wasn't like we got a watered down version of Thor. We got Thor from Thor Ragnarok carried on from Infinity War. We got the same guy. We had the conclusion of Iron Man's arc that we saw in 2009 or 2008 or whenever it was, and organically he grew into the person who made the ultimate sacrifice. So I can't think about this movie without thinking about all the others, and that's why I don't know. It was the greatest thing I've seen, though. So I guess, yes, maybe it was the best superhero movie ever.
I will say that you can, in my opinion, at least you can think of it as on its own, because we are in a unique situation where a large swath of the movie-going audience has seen this shit. All of these movies, they've kind of seen it. It's sort of like going into Spider-Man with Tom Holland. You've seen the other ones, so you kind of know the gist. Like everybody, even if you haven't maybe seen Ant-Man and maybe you only saw one in the Guardians, you kind of know all these characters for the most part. So it's been in syndication on TV, like, so it can stand alone to me because everybody's kind of known it. These movies are all so big. Everybody's in on the joke, so to speak. So that's why I think it works, even as a sequel, because it's almost like it's like a sequel to another movie, and it still plays well on its own. And that's what blows me away, because it's not like the DC, like Aquaman and Suicide Squad, good fun. Like, this is heartfelt moments, good dialogue, great directing, great visuals. Like, one, Cap standing there alone with that gigantic army, what a visual, but it grabs at you. And then two, Cap picking up the fucking hammer. Oh my, I was gonna cry from that. I was like me and my girlfriend.
I literally did a audible yes, and there was like, I went obviously like midnight showing, right, and there was a group of like teenage girls in front of me, and they all gave me the side eye when I did that, and I looked at them like, you fucking peasants, you don't know, you don't know. And then obviously, right, when the female scene came, when all the females got together, they did that. I'm like, see, now you know.
It's like, now
you know why. You're welcome.
Which, by the way, that shot was dope.
Yes. Oh, that was so good.
The only thing wrong with that is that it was Captain Marvel that they were trying to protect, like she needed it. That's the only flaw I have with that part.
Like Okoye defending her with the spear. Like,
yeah, I'm like, all right, like, yeah, the Dora Milaje is dope, but I don't think Captain Marvel needs them. so that would be my only critique of that particular shot, but it was fantastic. Like, I found it a lot more enjoyable on the second viewing. In the first one, it was fantastic.
Yes, I agree.
But the second viewing, it was like,
it was more coherent. It wasn't as too much. The first time was too much. Honestly, there was too much going on.
The first time, it was overwhelming.
It was.
It was so overwhelming. It was like I was so excited that I was just there watching it, that I couldn't just enjoy what I was watching as much.
Moments.
Right. And watching it the second time, even knowing what was coming next, it really resonated a lot more. Like, I'd cried during it too. It just I didn't even try to hide it.
We were all men. We all cried when Iron Man died.
I didn't even try to hide it, man. I was in there with the full on red face, just like, what? Hands at my side. I ain't even wiping my tears, bro.
Or the I like cheeseburgers scene. Oh man.
Oh man. Oh. When they recording the Iron Man said "Love You 3000," it's just like, yep, and it started.
And the other one, like, and I think me and Ann talk about this in Infinity War, when Spider-Man goes and he starts fading. Oh, Tom Holland's so good. You're like, oh,
amazing in that.
Man, it's so good. He topped that in Endgame with the reverse when, like, Tony's dying. He's like broken up, like, oh my god, that was killing me. And it was so well done in that. Like, and I said to Anthony too, it's like, Tony is a guy who can't stop talking. He can't shut up. And it's the one time he can't say anything because he's just dying. And it's like so powerful. Then, like, Pepper being strong as a motherfucker, just like, go, you can go, we're good, like, but Tom, he's young, he doesn't get, just so emotional.
And again, only because I've seen it so many times, I'm able to catch like the connections with the writing and the screenplay of it. Her saying you can rest now is a direct callback to the last thing she says in the movie to him before he goes off. She says, not verbatim, but she basically says, yeah, but if you don't put it away, you won't be able to rest. Like, she literally says you won't be able to rest unless you go and help your friends, basically. And he goes and helps his friends, and now he can rest. And it's so poetic. It's so great. Tom Holland, like you say, is fantastic. The whole On Your Left and then the portal scene, like that I remember because I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was coming in that way, and it still floored me because I'm thinking, where's everyone at? I'm like, Black Panther is back. Like, everyone's back. Where are they? Where are they? They need backup. Where are they? Like, they have to come up. Where are they? And then you get the Cap. What? On your left. And, just perfect with the music blaring. Just, again, moments that maybe not make you cry, but make you go, yes, this makes me feel all the feels right now.
I had happy
joy at that point. I had tears of joy at that point. That was my childhood come to life right there. I just remember as a kid talking to my cousins, and we were passing comic books with each other back and forth. And it was so exciting every so often to see a superhero in live action. Every so often you saw something like that. Once every 5 years, maybe you got a superhero movie. And just thinking, oh, Blank Man is a classic. There will be no Blank Man slander here tonight.
Spawn. Hey, you got Spawn. I was good enough for a whole decade.
Yeah.
Oh, Spawn is rough too. Oh.
Spawn wasn't all that. But yeah, man, it was like watching my childhood just appear right before me. That was such an overwhelming experience. And then also too, we've started getting to know these characters for so long beyond our comic book fandom, but well beyond that, just having these every year or so, there are these 2 or 3 hour experiences with these characters, and you get to see them go through all these things, and you become emotionally invested. And then all of a sudden, they all come together, and the pairings. I mean, of course, Infinity War had these really insane pairings, and Endgame just doubled down on them even more. To have Spider-Man riding alongside Valkyrie,
Yes.
you know, to have Rocket Raccoon standing on War Machine's shoulder, and they're both cocking their guns. Like that is stuff that you just would not have thought of otherwise in this same universe, that this realistic portrayal of Iron Man comes from. Then a talking raccoon is standing on his shoulders after the hands of a giant person open up and they run out. Like this just, but it all made sense. It was amazing.
Or where a duck literally comes out of the portal with the machine gun.
Yes.
Okay, like the fact that we did not get a single split scene of Howard the Duck fucking up like a Shatari, I'm kind of upset about that. I'll be honest. I wanted that. But the film is littered with just great scenes. Like, there's really no faults in this movie. And that's why I just sort of circle back to, like, because I never answered the question about whether this is my favorite superhero movie. This is the best superhero movie, in my opinion, now. I don't know yet. I think it's a tough act to follow, Infinity War. Infinity War not only is a part one, so it can literally subvert every expectation. It can have the bad guy winning. It can do a lot of things that normal super movies can't do. On top of that, it did the snap. And I think, at least when I was watching that movie for the first time, I didn't think they were going to do it. I thought they were going to push that off somehow to the second movie, something. Maybe not even do the snap. I did not think they were going to wipe out literally all of their moneymakers. Black Panther, Spider-Man, everyone that has sequels lined up in our minds. Like, that was so shocking. And I don't know if Endgame's complete emotion-filled ride beats it. And plus, it is a longer story, so it is a little bit less coherent at times. It just is. There's so much more story with Endgame to tell. You have not only the time heist, you have the first 20, 30 minutes of the movie where they kill Thanos, and that was a complete subversion of thought and what was going to happen. I loved that. The movie is fantastic. It's probably it's 1A or 1B with Infinity War right now. It just is. Dark Knight right below it, and then Blade 2 firmly at number 4, because Blade 2 is obviously one of the most unheralded superhero movies of all time. Fight me.
You put Blade 2 over Winter Soldier?
Or Civil War? Or Guardians of the Galaxy 1?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or Batman Begins.
Logan. Or Logan. Yes, I do. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome.
Deadpool,
yes.
Deadpool, yeah.
My exact top 5 before Blade
2 is good. I like it.
Hey, before Endgame came in, this is all super movies, not just Marvel. Infinity War, Dark Knight, Blade 2, Logan, Deadpool. And then Winter Soldier, V for Vendetta, Guardians, Thor Ragnarok, Civil War, Blade, Hellboy, Iron Man. Come on.
Blade 2.
Blade 2 is
the Winter Soldier.
Blade 2 is the best Blade movie, and Blade is low-key the best comic book series of all time before the MCU happened.
Oh, before the MCI, I'm glad you clarified that
Yes.
because there was only like 2 other comic book series before Blade. So not exactly a whole lot ahead of like. So what? Like, yeah, Blade 2 was better than Superman Quest for Peace. Yes,
or Ghost Rider 1.
No. I'll say this: the entire Blade series combined is better than the Tim Burton Batman series. I will go on that ledge. It's hey, let me finish. Let me finish. Better than obviously the Joel Schumacher era, right? Like that's obvious. Everything is better than the Fantastic Four series. Better than Ghost Rider. Better than all of that, and arguably on par with Dark Knight in terms of that series.
Okay, see now you just lost your mind.
Blade Trinity, a top 20 comic book movie. Fight me. I'm just kidding. That's like a top 30.
Oh, cool, man. I was about to punch my damn computer.
It's like top 30, guys. Come on.
Top 100.
That's sure. That's
come on.
There
have not been 100 superhero movies. Let's keep that in.
Exactly. Yeah, but actually, I don't think Blade Trinity wasn't the worst thing in the world. Blade Trinity wasn't as bad as like Elektra is probably the worst.
For comparison, what's above Blade 3 is X-Men Apocalypse on my list.
Oh my god.
What's below it is Justice League. I should probably.
I mean, Justice League kind of wasn't good, so that
X-Men Apocalypse is horrific. That's a horror movie posing as a superhero movie.
Hey, but Dark Phoenix looks great, man. Come on.
I just heard that's on pace to be the lowest grossing X-Men movie so far.
I from a buddy of mine that is a bit of an insider on these things. He's saying
Dennis. So it's Dennis.
Yes, Dennis. Yes.
Dennis.
I just didn't feel like explaining who he was. I do. I forgot you do watch his work too.
I've met him before. I know Dennis.
That's right. You met him. Yeah.
We met him together.
That's right. Yes, you were there. You were there.
I know people you don't know.
No, but I was just. I mean, I'm kind of a big deal. What can I say?
Yes, Ron.
Oh my god, that was so good. Yeah,
back to you, Tits McGee.
But since we're talking about potential bad comic book movies, new Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman, obviously recasting it. Robert Pattinson now in final stages to be Batman. Look, you guys are shaking your head. I think it's a good casting.
What?
I think it's a unconventional casting, but I like it.
This is the Blade Trinity of casting.
No. Stop. Okay. First off, to my defense, and then I'll give you guys plenty of time to shit on me and Robert Pattinson. His indie run for movies has actually been pretty decent. Like, him in terms of just pure acting ability. Maybe not how great these movies are because they're indie movies, and indie movies are all pretty the same garbage. But his acting in it is fantastic. On top of that, it is eerily reminiscent of the unusual Michael Keaton casting for Batman. Because remember, like that was universally panned at the time. He was a comedy guy. He wasn't even the greatest comedy actor at the time. No one thought he could pull off Batman, and especially Tim Burton Batman.
Yeah, George Clooney was unusual too.
Yeah, okay.
George Clooney seems more typical than Michael Keaton, actually.
George Clooney was a guy that could hold down a movie, though. Michael Keaton wasn't really proven to do that yet, maybe.
Yeah, Mr. Mom.
And he had Beetlejuice. George Clooney had ER. And Dust Till Dawn.
But Beetlejuice wasn't like the thing. Like that wasn't. Actually, it was.
Yes!
Yeah, it was a.
I was trying to think of like a spin-off. I was thinking like he wasn't
like you, Mr. Hunter. I was alive during that time. I remember Beetlejuice. I was trying to
think like maybe he wasn't like the main guy, but no, he kind of was the main guy.
Yes, yo.
Yeah, he kind of was. Damn. Anyways, digressing. I think Robert Pattinson could do a decent young Bruce Wayne and young Batman, depending on the costume design, but especially depending on the movie, screenplay. Obviously the surrounding parts of the movie have to be good because Ben Affleck was a good Batman.
Ben Affleck was a great Batman, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought he was a really good Batman, but the movie surrounding him was trash. So it doesn't really matter, unfortunately, how great you are as Batman. I think Robert Pattinson would be a good Batman. Is the movie going to be good? No idea. But I think it would largely not matter based off of his performance. I think Robert Pattinson might be the best part of the movie, actually.
All right, so I definitely am not fully on board with the casting
I know.
of Batman, obviously, but I also wasn't on board when Heath Ledger got cast as Joker. So I'm trying to be optimistic and say, hey, Matt Reeves is a much smarter guy at movies than I am. Perhaps he knows what he's doing. So I'll just leave it at that. But I just can't envision him being Batman. Like and I don't mean from a physical standpoint. I guess he can look like he's a rich white guy. He can play a rich white guy. That doesn't seem too far of a stretch. As far as like body wise goes, like that's the last thing I worry about, because Hollywood will give you the best of steroids. They'll give you the best of trainers and nutritionists and everything else. So for all we know right now, Robert Pattinson could be sitting there having dinner with Chael Sonnen and discussing all sorts of regimens as far as artificial enhancement goes. He could be right now in TJ Dillashaw's medicine cabinet for all we know. So I say in a few months there'll probably be a photo of him preparing, and he'll be jacked, and then we won't, from a physical standpoint, we won't have anything to worry about that. His acting ability, I can't speak to his indie movie roles. I asked my wife about it right after we ended the trenches, and she was like, I don't see him working on that, but he's a better actor than the Twilight movie showed. She said one of his indie movies she saw and she really liked his part in it. So, I mean, I guess we'll ride with it. Do we have a choice? I mean, it's a Batman movie. They already have my money.
Yeah,
so,
come on, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you can cast anybody short of David Duke as Batman, and I'll go watch it. Fuck David Duke.
They do not have my money yet. I will say that.
Oh wow, really?
No.
Yeah, right.
Come on, Jason. You can see a Batman movie.
You coming up with that, buddy? You's a liar.
Because DC EU is just a clusterfuck anyway. So I don't trust anything they do right away. And then
like Aquaman.
Well, James Gunn's Suicide Squad. You telling me you don't trust that movie to be good automatically?
That I trust. That I trust to be good.
Because you know what? Because he's already done Guardians. He can also do a bad movie. It doesn't, like, yes, he did Guardians and made that work, but doesn't mean everything he does is going to be great. He's not fucking Steven Spielberg or something like that. Like, he can have a misstep, but I still rather see a trail just because I don't trust DC. But that would be the one I would look at. And then, and also I haven't seen Pattinson's indie stuff, and I'll trust you on that. I mean, it's hard to see the Twilight guy being in it, but I will give the benefit of the doubt on Matt Reeves, because the last two Planet of the Apes movies, great.
Yes.
The third one is fantastic. So I will trust his ability and stuff like that. So I'm not excited yet. I'm not excited about Joker. Like, I don't like that they're doing this like, fuck it. We're just going to make movies, whatever. These are sort of connected and this shit is not connected. And we're just going to do shit with characters, whatever. Like, if they're trying to go strategically, if that was the idea from the start, we're just going to do movies, but they're doing we tried to be Marvel, fucked it up, so we're just going to do some random shit now. And I'm just not on board with that. Like, and the Joker thing, I'm so on it. I didn't like how the trailer looked. I know a lot of people loved it. I did not, and then also at some point, do we get Batman fatigue? Like, I was worried about that with Spider-Man, but with Marvel's branding on it and their power behind it, it became good.
And also Tom Holland's performance. I mean, he definitely breathed so much life into that character.
My favorite Batman. Like, I love the trailers. When I saw the movie, I fell in love. My favorite Spider-Man movie, my favorite, Spider-Man actor ever. But I mean, damn, we've got a lot of fucking Batman like the last 20 years. We had him in a bunch of these movies. He's gonna do another one. What is like Batman? Straight up our generation's James Bond. What is this like? So we had Keaton,
Kilmer,
Clooney, Ben
Bale,
Affleck, Bale. This is a 6 Batman. Like, god damn, 6. Like, the one thing I will say also that I read like a month ago is that they're going to try to make it very detective-y. And he's going to be less action flick and more like crime solving, which is an element they haven't done enough, and that's actually very cool. So, I was excited in a way, but Pattinson has put cold water on that a little bit. So, but I don't know. They don't have my money yet. DC has burned me enough. Not after Suicide Squad and Man of Steel.
How do you think they're going to do the next Wonder Woman movie? Because obviously that's coming out this year, I think, right?
I think it's next year.
It's next year.
Or is it at the end of this? It's at the end of
think
this
it's
year.
We've seen way too many trailers for it to be next year. I feel
it
like
was supposed to be last year, right? And then they pushed it back to
yes, I want to say so. But it's a sequel / prequel because obviously it takes place before Justice League, BVS, all that, but takes place after Wonder Woman. So your idea, Jason, of the whole connective universe thing, do they just avoid that topic completely, just like Aquaman? And they just...
I don't know, because they made some reference, because I didn't see Shazam, which I'm disappointed I didn't get to see it, but there was some reference to like Superman, Batman.
Wait, you haven't seen Shazam yet?
Oh man, I didn't get to see it.
Wow.
I know. Don't worry, I'm disappointed in myself as well.
It's still on theaters. You have time. But I mean, you see a air quotes headless Superman in the movie.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, and then like the batarangs and stuff, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
so it's definitely still part of that universe. They just don't make it a central theme or a central plot point.
I mean, I think you'll still get references. I think they probably see some dollar signs still in the Justice League at some point, maybe not soon. But I mean, if Aquaman's a big deal, Shazam's a big deal, Wonder Woman's a big deal, why would you not eventually do a Justice League? So they'll probably do light hints. I think they're still going with it. And that's what's so dumb about it, that they're going to still kind of go with the shared universe loosely. And then they're going to have some shit that's not even like this Batman, as far as we know, is not connected either. So you have Batman and Joker that are not even connected in this world. There very well may not be Batman or Jokers in this world, or we got the fucking mess of Jared Leto's Batman. Like, God, it's so confusing. And then the TV shows are different.
And also, we have the Birds of Prey movie coming out with Harley Quinn.
That so-called trailer, whatever that was, that looked like refried dog shit.
And I like Ewan McGregor, and I like Black Mass, but I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I need to see more from that if they are to entice me. Like that. I do like the fact that they're not. Oh, sorry. Let me. I started that off wrong. DC messed up from jump by interfering too much. Now, say what you will about Zack Snyder, him as a filmmaker, and he certainly has his flaws as a filmmaker. I still believe that Man of Steel is the best movie out of the DCEU. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was a good setup for the universe because it wasn't trying to set up the universe. They dropped slight little Easter eggs here and there, like the Wayne Enterprises logo on the satellite, little things like that, and LexCorp on the truck that was blown up in the building, whatever. So there were setups like that, and from there, if you just had say a Man of Steel 2 followed by a Batman solo movie, and then perhaps you enter into a Justice League or Batman v Superman instead of having the rush to the connected universe. So they are trying to scale it back, which is good. And the thing is, they've made such a mess out of all these properties that they're trying to hold on to the things that they know are going to work, while trying to find some way to discard the rest. So to have the tone of Shazam, which much closer to the tone of like Wonder Woman and Aquaman, where it's supposed to be a more fun thing to watch. And then you have these slight references to everything in between. But let's not talk about it too much, because then we got to acknowledge the mess that was Mark Zuckerberg / Lex Luthor. And then we have to acknowledge the complete absurdity of Doomsday being introduced into the world so fast. So there has to be either one, a pressing of the reset button, and we just say we are starting from scratch, or you just play along with this, and you play along, and then maybe we'll look up in 5 years, there'll be a Justice League movie on the horizon, and maybe it'll be enough time that we forgot about the mess that we saw previously. I think it was last year that Justice League came out.
2 years ago, I think.
Justice League came out 2 years ago, 2017. And to your point, we had the Batman vs Superman fight literally in the second movie in the DCEU. We didn't get a team-up movie for Avengers till literally the Avengers movie, which was the 6th movie at that point. There were 5 movies before that set it up. They definitely tried to race to the finish without really any setup, any build-up.
And especially with that version of Batman, that version of Batman, you need to devote serious backstory to as us being comic book people, we understood that was Dark Knight Returns Batman. That's Batman who's world weary, he's beaten down, he's over this, and he just decides to come out of retirement because he's so angry now. That's what we saw, but there was no real explanation of that. There was no the rich material that is there. If it's like, say, if this Matt Reeves Batman prequel was about some of the events that led to Batman being so disillusioned, to you see why he was like that in Batman v Superman. Imagine that movie coming out first. Imagine that coming out first, and then you have Batman v Superman, where these things just make sense when you're trying to tell stories in a logical order, and also for Warner Brothers to interfere so much. Zack Snyder has so many flaws as a filmmaker, but one thing for sure is he has visions about what things are going to be. He has an idea of what the finished product looks like in his head, and if you disturb that with your studio nonsense and things that can sell toys and trying to jam in as many characters as possible and these nonsensical plot points, you're going to create a mess. Imagine this is my theory on this. Had the studio not interfered, even though it was headed in the wrong direction as far as Batman v Superman being the second movie in the connected universe, imagine what a masterpiece it would look like if in 5-6 years after that came out, you had context to the nightmare sequence. If you had something that tied back to that and explained how they got to that point, there is a vision that these filmmakers are trying to produce. The studio executives, be rich dummies and sign the checks. That's all you need to do, rich dummy. Sign the check, get the fuck out of the way, rich dummy. All you rich dummies, that's what you do. Be rich, be a dummy, sign a check, get the fuck up out of here.
So Ant is really a Zack Snyder truther, and obviously he really wanted Zack Snyder to complete his idea. Not the director's cut. No. I don't know if you guys know this. Kevin Smith, obviously you guys know who Kevin Smith is. He was talking to somebody that was working on the film with Zack Snyder, and they told him this, that they had a planned out universe. Zack Snyder planned out the entire universe, a trilogy of Justice League films, and the third movie was going to be that nightmare scenario where everything went to shit. And the second movie, second Justice League, was going to incorporate the Green Lantern Corps, but the Green Lantern Corps was going to lose, and that was going to be sort of like the
Thanos snap. That would have been
that was going to be like the Thanos snap. And it was going to be super dark, super depressing, but it was a coherent story, a coherent idea. I do like that, because if you look at everything post Justice League, everything's a new producer, new executive producers, new writers. Every single movie, it's a new team.
90 seconds.
Don't worry about that. That's our phone system.
Justice League had 2 different directors. Like that's that didn't start after Justice League. That started during the filming of Justice League. Some of the stories of the rewrites that were mandated because because they didn't like the fan reactions online to Batman v Superman are absurd.
I will say this, like, that all sounds good, and Zack Snyder, those
60
drawn out
seconds.
Nice to meet you, lady. That all sounds good and stuff like that, but it's unfortunate that Zack Snyder, the dude who made 300 and Watchmen, that guy's gone. I don't know what the fuck happened to that guy, but he makes some so-so movies now. Because what was that movie with the orphan girls and
Sucker Punch?
Sucker Punch,
super trash. Super trash.
Man of Steel, I'm not a big fan of. And then Justice League, not Justice League. Dark Knight, Batman vs Superman, I just didn't like either. So he fucked it up for himself, and that's the only person that messed it up. That's why I don't feel so bad. And that's why I read this article years ago that it was with Kevin Feige, and I think it was like Variety, where they would talk about when they were shopping this whole concept around, and they were going to studios like, okay, we want to do this thing where we have the superheroes have separate movies and then build to a big Avengers movie. And they were like,
10 seconds.
Why wouldn't you just do the Avengers first? Like, I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to us. And that's what they did. And they jumped. They kind of tried to be Marvel, like, shit, we can't wait. Let's just do this Avengers thing real quick. I'm not Avengers, Justice League, and we're going to make a lot of money. And it didn't work out. And that's what's amazing about Marvel, that they trust their product so well, and they trust the story so well, and just tweak it. Warner Brothers, who owns DC Comics, they don't trust that shit. It's unbelievable because DC has this archive of unbelievable stories too, but they just don't trust it. And they threw it in Zack Snyder's hand. That's the thing. Like, Marvel hires people that may not necessarily always be diehard comic fans, but they appreciate the material and they stay within what they're looking for and they love the material. I don't think Zack Snyder loved the material. I think he likes the idea and he wanted to Zack Snyderify it, and that's where it messed it up. If
Zack Snyder's not a nerd. He's not a nerd for comic books. He doesn't care about the source material. Kevin Feige loves comic books.
Yes.
He will.
I read today he still reads them weekly.
Yep.
That new stuff. So, you know, like they didn't get guys that love it. Like now they're hiring people that respect it more and it matters to them, but that's where they went wrong and then it screwed them up forever. And that's why I'm always worried about the choices, because in the end, Warner Brothers is making key decisions like Warner Brothers in your traditional big movie studio, not like Marvel Studios. So while I respect Matt Reeves a lot, maybe he doesn't make the Batman movie we kind of want or expect or need, you know? So that's the, and then also the Flash. I liked Ezra Miller's Flash. That thing's a fucking hot mess too. And it went to like 2 directors. Ezra Miller's probably not going to do it now. Like,
Grant Morrison's come on to sort of save the script.
Yeah.
And Grant Morrison, I think, has either never written a script completely or he's only been like, I think he helped on with, what did he help on with? I forget, like in the past for a movie, but he's never written a script before. You know, it just, there's a lot of issues there, of course.
And Jeff Johns, like I love Jeff Johns. One of my favorite runs in comics is what he did with Green Lantern. It's unbelievable. That's where he developed the Blackest Night, all that stuff. Amazing. They just like, oh, well, you know, Marvel has comic book guys. Maybe we need our own comic book guy. And they gave like Jeff Johns like president, power for like the DC Universe movies. Like, what are you doing? He's still a comic guy.
But I will say this. I will say this though. Your favorite DC movie, Aquaman, written by Jeff Johns.
Oh, he did write that.
He has co-written it with James Wan and Will Beal. But yeah.
I'll still give James Wan credit because he co-wrote and he directed that. So Jeff Johns, I'll give him some. But
See, I'll give James Wan a lot of credit, mainly because I'm a fan of the first Saw movie. So I like what James Wan is capable of. I do like the fact that at least in Aquaman, it didn't seem like something that the studio interfered with.
Yeah.
It seemed like his vision. I thought it sucked. But it also seemed like it was a vision that he had in his brain, and he was allowed to bring this to fruition, and they just gave him the resources to put it together. So I appreciate that. I feel the same way about Shazam. That didn't seem like something that was meddled with a whole lot. So really, I just want these films to not be meddled with. If you hire these creative talents, let them be creative. If you are the rich dummy sitting behind the desk, sign the check and let creative people do the creative things. And that's what's lost on it. You know, good movies don't necessarily sell toys. If you want to sell toys, just go make kids movies, and don't try to add a level of sophistication to the material. Then,
and
you know what? You can't get excited because Warner Brothers' entire history is they'll play good and then they'll eventually meddle. Batman back in the day, they fucking put Joel Schumacher from what is it? What movie did he make? The Witness or the Juror with Susan Sarandon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent movie. That don't make him a guy who should be doing Batman movies. we got like Adam West style Batman. You know, Superman went awry back in the day. Like they're as a normal big time movie studio, they're always in the end gonna meddle, especially if it makes money. So I would not be surprised if they fucked with Aquaman 2 because it made money. It's like, oh shit, this is a money back. That's probably why Aquaman and Shazam were good, because they were like, yeah, do it. Well, they, you know, I don't know. They're not Superman or Batman. It's a fish guy and this kid superhero thing. That's probably why it wasn't untouched. Now that they make money from it, they're gonna be like, oh shit, what can we get out of this? And it's just.
And to put that into context with Marvel, the movies that we know they had the most issues with that also critically got the most issues were Thor: Dark World, which I believe Patty Jenkins was originally supposed to direct, right? And then she went on to direct Wonder Woman, right, and sort of show them what's up. And then also
Edgar Wright was supposed to direct
Edgar
that
Wright
originally.
for Ant-Man. And I would say Ant-Man 2 is a better movie than Ant-Man 1 just because it's a better direction. You can tell there's not as much meddling. And also Avengers Age of Ultron. For even though I do like that movie, it is still you can tell that a production company meddled with that. And obviously, Joss Whedon left Avengers completely and MCU completely because of Kevin Feige and the issues they had there. And then post that, you see them completely let James Gunn have any Guardians character he wanted, and he picked the worst of them. Star-Lord was nobody. And then they let Taiki, what's his name? I always mess up his name.
Waititi?
Yeah, and they let him just have full reign of Thor Ragnarok, and look how amazing that was, when really he wasn't known for much before then. If anything, for comic book, he was best known for probably being a supporting character in Green Lantern for that one scene.
I will say, what they do in the shadows, if you haven't seen that movie's fucking awesome. It's like a vampire parody. It's hilarious. And that's what helped to get him that Thor Ragnarok. And you can see, if you watch that, you're like, I see.
The comedy isn't probably the same.
Yep. Same kind of thing.
But guys, I think that's going to be it for today, because we've been on for 2 hours. And I know you guys already did an hour plus show. So you guys have done 3 hours of radio and podcasting. Salute to you guys. Hustling.
It's midnight. I've got to go to work in the morning.
Yep, all that fun stuff.
Me too.
But Jason,
it's not midnight here.
Yeah, Anthony, relax. It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I got some writing to do. I gotta write a mailbag column. So,
Jason, let people know where they can find you and any of your upcoming work, and where they can find that.
As always, Cheap Seats Chat on Twitter and Instagram. Got 2 stories this week that should be on Sherdog covering UFC Rochester. My Austin Hubbard interview. He debuts on the main card from his UFC debut. And then I should have one with Julio Arce. He was on the prelims. I look for those, and I'll have more stuff, PFL, some other UFC stuff next week, some One Championship stuff. So, but yeah, Cheap Seats Chat, Twitter, Instagram, and thanks for having me on. It's a damn pleasure.
Always appreciate it, Jason. Please, anytime, man. And I know I'm awful about inviting people. Ask Anthony. Like, I'm really awful about inviting Anthony on the show. It's really an open invite. So you just need to let me know, hey, let's do a show this week, and I will find time. Don't worry about it, man. Anthony. People kind of know where you are, I guess, but let them know.
Ant Walker MMA. You can find me there on Twitter. That's also the Instagram name. You also can check out some of our work on Sherdog.com. I've got just dropped today on the Sherdog.com YouTube page an interview with KSW co-owner Martin Lewandowski in promotion for KSW 49, which is Saturday morning. Also, I've got the Good, Bad, and the Ugly, the post-fight column that's going to be assessing UFC Rochester. I will be doing a post-fight stream on the Walkout Network as well. So go ahead, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I just had a video drop on MMA On Point that I wrote. I can't remember what the topic was. I wrote so many of them, but I got a link to it on the Walkout Network. So go ahead, find that. Yeah, wow, I'm so bad at promo, but there it is. So,
I don't know what's it about.
I forget which one. I forget which one. No, you know what? I remember it was 10 fighters, 10 successful fighters post MMA. That's my latest one.
That was exactly like what I did back in school when I didn't know a presentation. I just started like making up words as I went, and I found a sentence. That was good right there, Anthony.
It was good, wasn't it? That was nice.
Yeah,
I'm nice with this.
I guarantee the video is not that. But anyways.
But I did write a script like that, so.
Sure you did. Yeah, like that. Yeah, you wrote a script like that.
It's about MMA. It's MMA point.
It's top 10 something.
Link on the Walkout Network on the playlist. So you just check that out.
Anthony Walker, a list of 10. See it.
Now, link there somewhere. But anyways, guys, find me, Matt Hunter, MCR on platforms. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. And of course, you know where to find these guys. If you don't know where to find them, it's on our homepage on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Mixed Combat Radio. You can find Walkout Network right there on the right-hand side. Sherdog, I think, is right there too, so you can find all of Anthony's, not Anthony's, you can find Jason's interviews, because Anthony, you don't do interviews. Jason does interviews. And also, a lot of their videos are linked on our YouTube page as well via the affiliates and friends of the show playlist, so go check out that. Plus, like Slip and Dip podcast with Matthew Wells, good friend of the show as well. Check all that stuff out. Support new media, support all of us, because we need it. But anyways, guys, have a great day, great night wherever you are. Peace.